Hi friends, this is Gerard. Welcome to episode 5 of Stamps Aren't Cool. Celeste will be here in a moment. I just popped in to let you know, if you didn't happen to catch my intro to episode 4, that these 2 episodes were recorded in 2023. It just took us a really long time to get them to you. So I'm sorry about that. We'll be back very soon with some new content. In the meantime, please enjoy this stuff from a year ago.
Hello, I'm Celeste and this is Gerard. Welcome to our podcast, Stamps Aren't Cool. Gerard is a philatelist, which is a stamp collector, who is also behind the blog Punk Philatelist. I do read it.
You nearly forgot the name.
I nearly forgot your name, so...
How many stamp blogs are you reading that you couldn't even remember which one I write?
This is, a good question. I'm just lost in stamp blogs from day to day. I'm really not.
No, we should point out to the other half of the listening audience that you're not a stamp collector.
Absolutely not.
No. Now, something interesting that happened in our life between recording the last episode of this podcast and this one is that we squeezed in a holiday to France. That was pretty fun. We don't do that every day. In fact, we were meant to go a couple of years ago and it was cancelled due to COVID. And prior to that, we meant to go for our entire lives. We hadn't got there.
But we finally did this year, so that one's checked off the bucket list.
We did. We did a lot of eating and a lot of travelling around. And in case you're wondering, not a lot of stamp stuff because it took us a while to get there, but there were a couple of stamp things.
We did a few stamp things. In fact, what was really surprising is, particularly in Paris, there is a stamp shop on every block. It was incredible. I've never seen anything like it. Gerard was in his element.
The next surprise was how many of those stamp shops weren't open, but but they at least had their little patch. I had been looking forward to this for a very long time. I was going to the Marché au Timbres, which is French. I was very proud of how I said that. Was it good? So the stamp market, basically. It's just off the Champs-Élysées. It's an outdoor stamp market and it's been running for years and years. I mean, we were going to go to the Champs-Élysées and see the Arc de Triomphe and all that anyway. So we thought, why not make a little detour off down the side into the park and go and see the Marché au Timbres. I expected this big bustling market. I expected this to be maybe a part of the world where people come to from all over the globe and I could walk down this street saying, here are my people. But as it turns out, once again, Gerard got something wrong.
Well, I don't know if you got it wrong. Perhaps just the scale of what we were expecting was a little off.
Shout out to Jean-Phillipe, the one dealer who had showed up that day. If it wasn't for him, we would not have had any kind of stamp market experience. So maybe I think he mentioned the rain keeps people away. I think there might have actually been a kind of stamp exhibition event out in the suburbs, which I was aware of, but I did make the sacrifice and decide I wasn't going to try to get to that day. So maybe the dealers were all out there, but we still spent what I'd like to think was a pleasant, hour or so at Jean-Phillipe's stall, looking through the postcards and practicing our French.
Is this a bad time to tell you it was Jean-Pierre?
I thought it was Jean-Phillipe. Oh, wow. My apologies to Jean-Pierre. Gerard got something wrong. I didn't end up buying any stamps from Jean-Phillipe. I had earlier had the chance to buy...
It's Pierre!
Well, I didn't buy it from Jean-Pierre either. I had earlier at a post office had the opportunity to buy that lovely mini sheet celebrating Gustave Eiffel. I also got a Marcel Marceau stamp to chuck on the postcards back home. I'm sure the kids in the family must have loved getting Marcel Marceau on a stamp. I told them to ask their dad to tell them about the famous actor who doesn't say any words. But then at Jean-Pierre or Jean-Phillipe's stall, we bought postcards. I'm not normally a postcard collector, but I thought what a beautiful way to remember France would be to buy a whole bunch of postcards. Some of them quite historic in black and white. Postcards of places we'd been to. That was the deal. What's your favourite?
My favourite one is the Eiffel Tower. This is such a beautiful image. Very classic. Got a nice postage mark on the front.
Yes.
I'm starting to get this now.
I'm looking at a nice one showing the foreshore along the Venice promenade. Sorry,
Nice.
the Nice promenade.
Wrong country.
No, I got the country entirely wrong. We did briefly go to Italy because we were right on the border, and we walked across the border and spent about 5 minutes in Italy. And then we remembered that we didn't have our passports on us, and maybe it would be best if we just walked back to France. Being able to walk between countries, that does our heads in because we're from Australia and we can walk for days and days, weeks, months even, and we're still in Australia. So the idea that you can just get up and walk into the neighbouring country for lunch, it's unusual for us.
Blew our minds.
I have a little side collection which is just for fun. It's a good example of how you can collect anything and you can make up your own rules.
Hang on, as opposed to the rest of your collection, which is laborious and and hard work.
That's right. It's very intensive, my stamp collecting. I call it the travel collection, and the rule is that if I see a stamp and it depicts something I've seen in real life, it goes in the travel collection.
Okay.
I mean, theoretically, stuff here in Australia would apply. I haven't got around to that yet.
That makes sense to me because at least you've got a connection to what's in the picture as opposed to, I don't know, the Queen's Head.
Yeah, and just to be clear, this doesn't mean that I collect the countries I've been to. That's not what I do. I do collect some of them, but for the travel collection, I have to have seen the thing that's on the stamp. So I'm going to show Celeste my travel collection. One of the other rules of this collection is that it only covers places we've travelled to together since we've been together, even though she doesn't actually care about the stamps.
Oh, true. We have started in Singapore, which I think is the first country we went to overseas together. And we've got the double-decker bus, which was very exciting at the time for me.
Yeah, because we don't have double-decker buses here either.
Oh yeah, that's probably worth noting. And what else have we got? Clarke
Quay we went to, the airport, the Geelong Bird Park is there. Yeah. And sometimes they're just cityscapes. Sometimes they can be actually fairly dull stamps, to be honest. It's not like
what?
Just once in a blue moon.
And on the next page we're in America. So these are actually in order of when we went to these countries.
Yes, they are.
This
well
is
done.
the USA?
I try to put them in chronological order. They're like a little travelogue for us.
He's congratulating me on remembering when we went overseas.
Well, no, I was congratulating you on spotting the order that I'd put them in the album. So there's some really beautiful American stamps, and they include places we've been to, but also there are people who are relevant to where we travelled, like Tennessee Williams. At one point we were in New Orleans and we drank in what was apparently Tennessee Williams' favourite bar. So we didn't get to meet Tennessee Williams. We were a bit late for that. But
as long as it reminds you of the holiday itself, then
yeah, that's right.
You collect the stamp. I like the diner one that you've got there. It's kind of a little bit of a retro.
It's got a nice retro look to it, doesn't it? Yeah.
Nice colours.
There's a statue of a lion. Those lions sit outside the New York Public Library.
Yeah. They're the lions that Rick Moranis and Sigourney Weaver break out of in Ghostbusters.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That's how I knew what they were.
And you can see, here's a little quirk in the travel album. That's a German stamp. And we haven't been to Germany. Well, at least, sorry.
We have.
Yes, we have. We had another lunch in Germany while we were in France.
Yes.
We were in Strasbourg.
Brilliant.
And we caught a tram to Germany.
Crazy.
And then we caught a tram home. So the German stamp actually depicts the Brooklyn Bridge due to the involvement of somebody whose name is a little bit obscured by the postmark, and I haven't actually looked into it yet.
Hey, das bin ich, Johann August Röbling. I only designed the Brooklyn Bridge, and during the project my foot was crushed and I died of tetanus. Show some respect, and do not tell me to design a bridge and get over it. That joke was not funny the first time.
So the stamps can make the travel album even if we haven't been to the country that put out the stamp.
But we have now, so that's fine. Oh, Vanuatu. That was our next holiday in Vanuatu, which is a beautiful country. I can see you've got some local marine life here. We did go snorkeling, which was a highlight in Port Vila. So that
we saw Nemo, I think.
We saw Nemo, the little clownfish.
We found Nemo.
And again, really pretty colours. Nice depiction of what we actually saw while we were there. So, it's a nice part of your collection.
Vanuatu does seem to be one of those countries that puts stuff on that's relevant to the country, which is good. It's not something you get from all island nations, but good on you, Vanuatu.
Yeah, you've got Tallinn, Monte Carlo. Okay, that's confusing because our next trip was to Estonia, and Tallinn is the capital, which we did go to. But why does that say Monte Carlo?
Well,
on
I
it?
just got a little bit excited because that particular set of stamps is marking what looks like a historic car rally that must have been run between Tallinn, which is the capital of Estonia, and Monte Carlo in Monaco. And when I added that to the travel collection, we hadn't been to the other end of that rally. We'd only been to Tallinn, and now that we've just come home from Europe, guess what? We also had lunch in Monaco. The number of other countries you can have lunch in when you're in France, it's amazing.
Absolutely.
So, and then we head on into some more Estonia.
Estonia and Finland.
When we were in Helsinki, that was another little stamp collecting experience for Celeste. We popped into a stamp shop and Celeste helped me fish through a box looking for Australian stamps on cover.
And Gerard was offered a cognac at 11 o'clock in the morning. It was very exciting.
Yeah,
we were jet lagged, so it didn't matter.
Philatelists are hardcore.
And I can see you got a beautiful stamp of cloudberries, which were just amazing and something that you can't get here in Australia. So it's nice to see something that reminds me of our trip.
So because we've now been to France and travelled all over France, well, I can start adding more stamps to my travel collection.
Great.
And not long after we got home from France, I actually went to Hobart, the capital of the island state of Tasmania here in Australia, for a stampy thing.
And I got the weekend to myself.
Yep, and that's how we seem to work best. And so I happened to buy a bunch of French stamps, and I thought you could just poke through them, and I'd be curious to see you.
I know what you're doing.
What? What am I doing?
There is a stamp here with the flying ducks across. I can see you nodding happily there.
Yeah. I was going to say, if there's one thing we did more often than looking at stamps in France, it was chasing ducks down rivers. I'm sure we spent more time doing that.
Maybe we did. And this is something that I've said, if I got a tattoo, I would probably get a tattoo of the 3 flying ducks. And this is a stamp of it, and it's really... really pretty.
I can't be sure they're the kind of ducks we saw, but they sort of look like them.
I think so. They've got the brown head and the green on the wings. The next one that caught my eye is the stamp of Arcachon, which was somewhere that was very unexpected on our journey and just a really beautiful part of the world. And that's a really lovely stamp. Again, vintage style, which seems to be my favourite.
Arcachon is this place that sits on a bay that's famous for its oysters, just on the Atlantic coast there. And it's quite near an enormous sand dune. So first we went and we climbed the enormous sand dune. And then we went when I ate oysters.
I watched. They're fine. Don't write in about that. And I can see here, that looks very familiar. I can see that says Cathedral of Strasbourg. We saw, of course, a lot of cathedrals on our trip, but that's very indicative of what we saw while we were away. So that's quite a nice image and a massive stamp, by the way.
Yeah, it's quite a big stamp. It's depicting a beautiful coloured stained glass window, and France does like putting out these art stamps, that I think they get called, and they are giant.
I can see here we've got one of Leclerc.
Leclerc, the guy who led the French army into Paris and Strasbourg, particularly towards the end of World War II.
And we did go to a war history museum. What was that museum
called? It was the Museum of the Resistance.
That's right. And we read a lot about Leclerc. So I can see why you've taken that one. Oh, we've got a few different styles of the Eiffel Tower and quite a few of the Arc de Triomphe as well. There's
a really pretty, quite enormous stamp of the Pont Neuf, the bridge in Paris. On our very first morning that we woke up in Paris, we wandered through the city and we went along the river. And as we walked out across the Pont Neuf, that was our first good view of the Eiffel Tower.
Yes.
And a guy was playing La Vie en Rose on an accordion nearby, and you could not have had a more cliched establishing shot in a bad movie. It was awesome. I've taken a few liberties. There's a stamp that depicts the inside of the Palais du Luxembourg, actually, I think it's called. And we saw the outside of it because we were walking through the gardens, but we didn't actually see the inside. So it's true I haven't seen the Senate chamber, but...
There's still time. We'll get back there.
There's still time for me to be voted into the Senate.
I can see the Palace of Versailles, somewhere where we spent an enormous day poking through. That was absolutely wonderful. So that's a lovely memory on a stamp.
There's one stamp that depicts the notice that General de Gaulle sent back into France after he got to London. When he decided to fight the Nazi occupation during World War II, he sent this notice out addressed to all the French, and it ends in Vive la France. And I think we saw one of those notices at the Museum of the Resistance.
Oh, right.
So I thought it was kind of cool finding one on a stamp. Good luck reading the writing. There's a lot of tiny writing on that stamp. But luckily they won the war, so no one really needs to read it now. There's more stained glass. This time it's from Sainte-Chapelle in Paris, which is another beautiful chapel. Full of stained glass.
Smaller than I expected.
Smaller than I expected too. It looks bigger in the photos.
Very pretty though.
And the last stamp, it's symbolising French and English friendship or something along those lines. And you see Big Ben on the left and you'll see Arc de Triomphe on the right. And that's kind of significant because after we were done in Paris, we went to London for 2 days. I didn't tell any of my stamp friends in London that I was in London, and that's because I've been to London 5 times and Celeste had never been, and we had 48 hours, and I was not going to do anything stamp-related during those 48 hours.
Thank you. They were the most wonderful 48 hours of my life, so much appreciated. I love you, London.
And that was our trip to France, and that's my travel collection, and that's what we've been up to lately. You can watch this podcast if you're not already doing that by finding Stamps Aren't Cool on YouTube. Every episode also has a companion post at my blog, punkphilatelist.com. And why not look up Punk Philatelist on Instagram, Threads, Facebook, X, Twitter, or Blue Sky?
You can email us at stampsaren'tcool@gmail.com.
We will be back soon. When we started, we were thinking fortnightly, and I think we've worked out that as we've gotten into normal life, no chance.
Thanks for watching and listening. How do we do this?
Don't we just start dancing to the music?
Not again.
Okay, just stare. Let me just pull this one out.
That's what she said.
The beauty of pre-recording it is we're not live and we can just cut anything out that's boring.
Thank God for that.